much has the last 12 months burned inside you?
Oh, it's driven me every single day. Those times through pre-season and even sometimes before big games, you get flashbacks before the Pies, you get flashbacks to that moment, and then it's just like, you feel responsible, but, now we're here again, and I'm just so blessed to have this opportunity again, and, football's not everything, but it's a very big part of my life, and, these boys are a very big part of my life as well, and I just want to repay them with my effort, so that's what you see from me on Grand Final Day.
It's the Brisbane Lions fan cast, and as the saying has been going for the back half of the year, if you're walking on thin ice, you might as well dance. And here we are at the big dance again. 12 months down the track, we've somehow clawed our way to another grand final against Sydney after one of the great prelim finals against Geelong. First of all, it was redemption for 2019 against GWS. Now redemption for 20 and 22 against the Cats in a prelim final. Now, can we right the wrongs of last year and cure all the heartbreak that has been building up for the last 12 months? I don't know, but we've given ourselves a chance somehow after two come-from-behind wins in a couple of the all-time finals. Another huge task awaits us on Saturday. We have just had confirmation this morning our tickets are through. We're sitting behind the goals, section M4, on Saturday for anyone that wants to come and say good day and have a beer at some point throughout the day. We'll be there, Patrick. We will be there.
Shit. What's left to say, You have one of the all-time great comebacks followed by one of the all-time great preliminary finals, and you just sort of sitting there going... we spoke about mental fragility in the back end of last year, and more fool us, because you certainly cannot in any way level that. And whatever happens this week, it sort of doesn't really matter, like in terms of that kind of aspect of the team. We're right in it. We're absolutely right in it. And Sydney looks scary against Port Adelaide, but at the same time, you can't buy this level of momentum. And there's no way that they wouldn't be having some kind of thoughts about what happened in 2016 as well. The wave, the momentum, the Bulldogs thing that happened. So there's stories everywhere. I hope David King is eating a soup made of shit this morning because he probably deserves to. But yeah, what a game. What a performance. What a coaching performance. And some individuals stood up when they were really being questioned. And I feel so bad for O.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him. That was a really hard watch at the time. But Darcy Fort's been playing some good football, so
well, I hope he's
got to pull the trigger.
I hope his body's sleeping with that shin guard on and absolutely ready, because he will be the man to come through, you'd have to think. But yeah, absolutely gutted and heartbroken for Big Oscar, because he deserves to be there. He's been there all year. He is now the Brisbane Lions' longest serving ruckman. He's played the most games for the Brisbane Lions as a ruckman, which is crazy to think, because you think back to some of the names and you think to yourself, surely he played more games. But no, Big Oscar is the one, and he's going to miss out, unfortunately. And to see the sickening look on his face, like he looked physically ill when his shoulder came out the first time, then to get it jabbed up, popped back in, strapped up to come back out, was amazing as well. And it was his left arm as well. And he loves those big left-handed punches forward with a big left-handed handball. To play another...
noticed every time Stanley just went in on that side,
of course.
Time, and every time he's just going, and you would, but every time he's just sitting there going, it was horrible. I don't know, my partner with her basketball background, Mrs. Pendlebury, she's not Mrs. Pendlebury, but she can't watch when someone pops their shoulder. And I'm just like, oh yeah, look at the dangly. But I couldn't when OE happened, I was like, don't look at the screen. Don't fucking look. It's bad. Like,
Yeah.
because you've got a small canoe dangling out of your arm socket. Like, he's got a giant arm.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fact that he was like couldn't walk was just, it was horrible. But yeah, probably should start from the start, even though that was pretty early. But
well, I mean, you know me, I've dislocated my left shoulder 13, 14 times, and I cannot fathom at any of those times coming back on and playing any sort of football, let alone a prelim final.
When you went to hospital last time, that I remember that you were just gone. I was like, "Where's Brooksy?"
Yeah, well, the last time I did it early on in the game of footy. Went to hospital, got a pop back in, got some endone, came back in time for post game beers. But I wasn't going to go back out and play some footy, and that is a social charity match where non-contact. So
I mean, non-contact is, Funnily enough, in one of those games, I did have my only shoulder. I got a stinger.
Yeah.
Because one of the young kids, one of the dude's kids that came in that one year,
yeah,
absolutely smashed me across the shoulder, and I had I was sore for a week, and now it's good. But that's the only extent of any kind of shoulder. I'm more of a knees and ankles kind of guy. You should see that they are very swollen at the moment. I played indoor soccer against a bunch of children last week, and man, they ran a lot.
yeah,
Not fun. Still scrapped a 2-2 draw though, so sucked in.
Nice one, mate.
Anyway, let's get to the team, which is no change.
Yes, lovely. And I think it probably is, these last couple of weeks, probably our most balanced and best looking team on paper, and obviously on the field as well. We're getting the job done. And just to touch back on that thing you said before with mental fragility, like the mental resilience and fortitude that we have been able to show, not just in this final series, but all year after the slow start. And you go back 12 months ago, the heartbreak of the grand final loss, Nicole Duncan passing away, the off-season scandals, the poor start, getting shown up by GWS, getting on a run, then those two destabilising losses to knock us out of the top four, and then to rally and put together some amazing football with some crucial moments. And just, I think the most pleasing thing is the stuff that cost us last year, especially in the grand final, is like those not getting those moments right and the game management and not knowing when to put someone behind the ball, not knowing when to still attack, knowing when to control tempo, when to, create contest, all that sort of stuff that we just got wrong by only, 0.5%. We are getting it right in the right moments this final series. And not only that, we've had another game at the MCG, another high pressure game at the MCG in front of 90+ thousand fans. That's can only help us next week.
It's funny that that's the second biggest crowd we've played against.
Yeah.
Ever in our history. And, there are a lot of people saying that was a dress rehearsal for a prospective new grand final slot as well. And if that's what can happen with a hinterland Victorian club and us, I think that's probably not a bad option going forward because, getting back to the game in a second, but the game we went to last year was 30 degrees, absolutely. If we were in the sun, holy shit, we would have been sizzling. So,
yeah.
I think having watched that game and the time slot it was in, I think twilight would be a good time for a grand final, but we'll move on from that.
I'm still a traditionalist at this point. 2:30 I love, and that's because that's who I am. I'm adverse to change, and I like if it's not broke, don't fix it sort of thing. But if it's going to change, I'm with Lee Matthews on this one. He said on Footy Furnace last night, just a little bit earlier, the 4:30. The 4:30 is probably a good one, so it wraps up around 7:30 rather than closer to 8:30. So if it's going to change to a twilight, I'm probably in favour of the 4:30, but that's neither here nor there for this year anyway, and I guess we'll see what happens next year. But we've got to get through this one first, and it's like I said, it's another big task. Sydney haven't had to leave Sydney for a while. They've had one pretty bruise-free encounter on Friday. Who knows what's happening with Logan McDonald at this point, but whether that works in their favour or against them, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when we chat about Sydney a little bit later on, but let's revel in the victory against the Cats because it was a game full of moments. I said to you off air, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do votes because there's at least 8 players that I want to try and squeeze in here. But yeah, they got off to a good start, Geelong. Just could not put it on the board. 4 early behinds before Charlie kicked a goal and sort of evened things up. But Geelong looked pretty good.
Yeah, so they brought Stewart back in, obviously, and Zach Tui went out, and then Mitch Duncan was their sub. We had McKenna as a sub again, and things kind of lined up the way you sort of more or less assumed. Ollie Henry was trying to go to Harris, and Big Shannon Neal and Payne were kind of doing that, and then Cameron got lost a little bit in the start of the game. Just sort of Payne was on him a bit, and we didn't really want to see that, but Froggy ended up going to him. But yeah, they definitely won territory kind of early and were putting a lot of pressure on, and didn't have their shooting boots on early. And you don't need us to tell you that if you're not kind of putting scoreboard pressure on early, that can kind of be a bit of a curse. Because I think it was 17 minutes before the first goal was kicked, and we went bang, they went bang, and then we went bang again. So somehow we wound up leading into quarter time, but like the rain early on was a little bit ominous. I don't think too many people were too chuffed to see it.
No.
Given what happened earlier on in the year, but yeah, it was a compelling contest because we were smashing Stanley out the middle, as you would assume. But I think Geelong just was showing a little bit more composure and stuff, kind of going forward and picking their targets and that sort of a thing. We took a bit to settle, but once we did, it was. Once we did, then we played our worst football, and then we settled a second time. So it's like brewing beer or something. It takes a couple of times to settle.
Yeah, it was. As you said, it looked a little bit ominous, and one of the matchups that I didn't think we particularly got right was, well, not that we didn't get it right. It's just Tom Stewart was pretty influential across the whole game. He had a great game for the Cats, and I thought we probably could have done a little bit more to quell his influence, but some superstars you just can't keep down, and he was out there to win after a bit of a long layup. I'm surprised they didn't select De Koning into the team, as I'm sure a lot of people were, especially Cats fans as well. So maybe that's one they got wrong. Who knows? I guess at the end of the day, Joey Danaher had to play full-time ruck anyway. So, but Blitzarv sort of ran with him when he went into the ruck after all of that, and the hit-outs ended up in Stanley's favour across the game. But yeah, their small forwards were doing the damage. Myers had a
Would you have put De Koning in for Stanley?
Probably not. I probably would have taken out someone like a Jed Buse or an O'Sheen Mullen or something.
Because it kind of, I think, given the way the game went, it probably would have left them a bit too tall in the back, and maybe they were wary of that, and maybe of the weather, because it was our smalls that ended up going to work in the end anyway, so could have left them too tall. But, they'll think about that for sure. But yeah, I thought, Blitzarv did a pretty good job. We're talking off air, he kicked a goal. I don't think I've ever seen Blitzarv kick a goal. I've watched, and he's never kicked a goal in any of the games that I looked up that we played against him. And this year he's lined up for set shots and missed every bloody one. So collector's item there to go with some of their, as Zorko said, 1 in 1,000 goals in the second quarter. But yeah, the Tom Stewart one was, how much can you really do sometimes? And we've seen people go to him and really aggressively go to him, and I just don't know that that's kind of our style. And should it be? Like the way the Port guy went to him in the home and away fixture?
Yeah.
Where he's just crashing into him all the time. It's like, my guys were doing that. I don't love it.
I guess
it seems a little bit.
Yeah, probably not that intense, or the way Chincotta went to him as well. Probably not that intense, but I guess in the same way that Archie played the role on Whitfield last week, I probably would have just liked to see something like that. And I'm sure plans were in place, but just couldn't stop him. He was just...
Just a word on that Whitfield thing. I heard after we recorded, so Whitfield had 12 kicks and also takes quite a lot of their kickouts.
Yeah.
So that shows how good Cal was.
Yeah. And he had another great game, Archie, as well.
But yeah, I heard that after we recorded. I was like, oh, shit. Right, okay. I didn't even consider that. Because you see a guy get 19 disposals. If Whitfield's handballing the ball 7 times and the others are more or less kick-ins, you've done an unbelievable job. So Cal Archie will get some plaudits, I assume, but we'll wait and see. What did you... So Tom Stewart gave away a free kick for, putting the old shoulder into Kai Loman. Obviously not a free kick.
No.
But bit of a dog move. I thought Geelong were throwing their weight around Tanner Bruin and Dangerfield. Particularly, I mean, Stanley, obviously, why wouldn't you when you've got a one-armed giant with you? But they were kind of almost unnecessarily brutal, I think, at times, in a way that was sort of bordering on. There was a lot of tackles that seemed borderline, a bit dumpy. Tanner Bruin's a bit of a knob. But yeah, Tom Stewart, the idea of just going into someone in an exposed position just always strikes me as like not a great footy act.
No, probably not, but it's a prelim final and you're here to win. There's a grand final on the line, so I guess I'm a little bit with what Hodgie was saying in the moment. It's just, it wasn't a free kick. I think because it was... Kai didn't necessarily have total possession of the ball, which was the thing that sort of gave it away in the end. I think the act itself was obviously hard but fair.
It's just sort of it was one where he went to hurt more, and it's one you're seeing less in the game, but they're exciting when they happen. But it's just when a guy's got his arm up, it just strikes me as a little bit of a bit cheap. But
you got to do what you got to do. Like Charlie Cameron's done it before. He did it in the grand final last year with Jeremy Howe. So
that wasn't cheap. That was all there.
Yeah, look, it's rough, but it's a prelim final. You've got to be hard. You've got to want it. You've got to do what you got to do to get a grand final spot on the line. So I don't. And look, Chris Scott is in charge of that whole system, and he was.
What do you expect?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the second quarter was. There was some shit going on in that second quarter, and it was really annoying because we almost didn't concede 4 goals in a row. We did, but we almost didn't. But we'll get to the 4th goal at the beginning of the third quarter. But yeah, there were some times in that where, again, we've had a spoil that just like
goes into the middle of the
goes straight to Jeremy Cameron's goals that he kicked were. I mean, we talked last week about Starcevic and, with Bobby Hill and stuff. They're not Leicester's fault that Jeremy Cameron's getting the ball, like, maybe the first one because he got sucked into contests, but it's like, well, what are you supposed to do? And that was kind of highlighted of, the pregame where they like to bring their small forwards into the contest. And Fagan said we were going to have one go with him, and he seemed to make a change in the second half as to who that one going into stoppage was, and... boy, oh boy, wowee, did that make a good change.
Yeah. Yes.
So, second quarter, they kicked some bullshit goals, I got to say. Brian Myers, what has he done? I tell you what, that Ollie Henry goal, the volley.
Yep.
That was that was objectively a really good finish because it's lateral in midair and he's pointing his toe and angling it. Like, that's a striker's goal.
Yeah.
For all money. Amazing.
I mean, the cross was nice from Buddy.
The cross was bullshit.
Lionel Messi Myers.
But yeah, the Ollie Henry finish was really good. There was some... Myers kicked another one. Jeremy Cameron kicked one. Luckily, Stengel had a bit of a shit game, which was good.
He had a mare.
Yeah. Fair enough. Could have gone out last night or earlier on in the week. I don't know. And we were able to score a couple times just to kind of, arrest a little bit of momentum, which was good. Who were the goals in that quarter for us? El Senor Brooksy? I can't quite recall.
So we had Logan Morris with one early on.
That was the one where Wilmot absolutely murdered someone.
Yes.
And Cam ran a deep entry inside 50.
Klug kicked one, and that was it for us for in the second quarter. And it wasn't until Archie kicked his first in the third quarter, followed quickly by Chuck and Kai Loman to get us closer back into the game. But yeah, McCluggage...
We did have opportunities because Ashcroft hit the post, and then... So it's funny, last week, I can't remember if I said Zach Bailey could kick 5 or Zach Bailey could kick 6. But by golly, he probably should have kicked 5.
Yep.
And I've seen a lot of stuff said where people like, we just expect all of those to go in, all of those, run on the run 50s. But far out, it's one where you're like, okay, he's one of the top handful that you would be like, okay, cool, he's got it. But yeah, he had a couple of misses in that quarter. And they went to work, Geelong. Annoyingly. Went to work. I thought there was a moment. It was the moment where Stengel, so really good pressure by Zorko, tackled Stengel and he missed his kick, and then Ollie Henry hit the post. I think that was the moment where I'm like, okay, cool. We're good. Like we're in here. And I know that sounds fucking obtuse, but there's been little moments in that in certain games, obviously. But yeah, it felt like something had happened there, and I was like, okay, cool. They've burked this up here. Their luck has run out, because we talked last week about making your own luck and how the bounce of the ball goes your way when you do that. That was definitely happening for Geelong in that second quarter. Through no real fault of our own, because we were pretty high pressure the whole game. We didn't drop off. They just were fucking scoring.
Yeah. That
goals.
Bloody ridiculous floater that Myers put on in the pocket that just... It looked disgusting from the second it left the boot to the moment it flew through straight between the middle. Ridiculous stuff. But yeah, I can't remember if that was, that moment you're talking about led to that like ridiculous chain along the wing where the overhand handball that just handballed our way out of trouble, the kick in the middle to Lachie Neale that ended in the rain of goal. That was just ridiculous footy to watch, like ridiculous. I can't remember if it directly followed that moment you're talking about where Ollie Dempsey just rattled into the post.
So the Dempsey one was in the second quarter. So Dangerfield still kicked a goal in the third from the Zorko turnover, which made the 4.
Yeah,
which is annoying. But to me, like, that was the end of their sort of second quarter shit. And they weren't very lucky after that. But yeah, the passenger play you're talking about, there were 2 that were quite similar. But yeah, like, one of them was the one where Starcevic was quite heavily involved. His power running is super impressive.
Yeah.
To get away from Close and Stengel or Dempsey or whoever the hell was there. But that was the dancing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the first quarter and a bit where our slow build-up ball movement, and I'm watching that going, yeah, and whether that's just me reading too much into what people are saying, it's like, if Brisbane hit 100 marks, they generally win. So I'm just, for some reason, looking at that going, well, there's another one, there's another step closer to the 100. And as if for some reason that's always it. Like, if we just chip it around for the first 10 minutes and get 100 marks, that's it, we'll win the game.
So there we go. It's unlocked the, there they go. We've gotten the magic ball.
Yeah. But it was, and the same case last week, it wasn't until we were under the pump where it was sort of like, all right, well, now we need to play chaos footy, biting off ridiculous kicks into the middle of the field that just works. We get run and gun. We're doing handball receives, which has not been our style all year. And then suddenly the last couple, it's just come out and it's worked. So, it's good to have that up our sleeve if and when we need it next week as well. But yeah, just that. I mean, that passage of play I was talking about before was just, how many, you run that play 20 times, how many times is it going to come off?
0.2. Statistical error. Who knows? Just I got to say another one that I forgot to mention in the second quarter. That Sean Manor goal, bullshit. When you got Dangerfield being tackled, towing the ball into his back,
yeah,
to then perfectly drop into his. It's just like, man, that shit. Nah, no chance. So it was Sean Manor's miss that led to that passage of play. Because there was one that led to the Charlie Cameron goal.
Yeah.
Where Lachie Neale, he's only our co-captain, led up, took a mark, and then dished off. And you're sort of sitting there going, are you sure about this? Passing off to Charlie Cameron? But worked. And then Kyle Lohman kicked a goal. Blitzards with a collector's item.
Yeah.
and the Cam Rayner goal. So I think that was the one. That was the one that Starcevic really busted through. Boy, he had a good game.
Oh, he had an amazing game. Him and Frog down back were just amazing, and even Kane Corns is all aboard the Frog train at the moment as well. Just the way he's heaping praise on him, and he said it as well, that the goals that Jeremy Cameron kicked were fortunate, if anything, and other than that, Ryan Lester gave him another bath.
Well, I guess Kane Corns has got to side with someone from Channel 7. Otherwise, he's going to he's continuously and repeatedly throwing shade at Luke Darcy, which I find to be quite funny. Because Joel Selwood, we know, is quite a large fan of the Frog, and such high praise.
Yeah,
I gotta say. But yeah, he's just he's probably the true barometer, the old Frog.
Yeah,
like in terms of, he didn't have to name himself that, so much so that he hasn't been named that. But speaking of nicknames, so in the third quarter, I think, and I don't know if this is correct, but it seemed like they were bringing. So first half they were bringing sort of Zorko up into stoppage-ish a bit.
Yep.
And I think in the second half they swapped and made Answorth go in there, the vacuum cleaner. And we know Answorth has been playing a lot of football in the VFL in the centres over the last couple of years. And I think that was a masterstroke, providing I haven't just made it up.
No, he's definitely played a few more minutes mid.
Yeah, because he was, we saw stuff late in the game, but, the idea of going, okay, well, you're going to bring your small forwards up to impact the contest. Well, we've got a guy that literally has played midfield. And I think he played in the midfield in his draft year before he had that injury, or his pre-draft year.
Yeah.
He broke his back. But he was fantastic. He's a little vacuum cleaner. He picks up all of the loose balls. And he just, the defensive ground ball is so important. And he did a good job. There were some people that did really good jobs, like Zach Bailey, although he was playing on Lawson Humphrey, and Humphrey's a pretty new guy, he kept him pretty honest. Humphrey didn't really impact the game going forward. I know Zach Bailey probably will have wanted to impact it even more. But 2 goals, 2 and a goal assist. Plus also there were times where he was like affecting spoils and shit in the back 50.
Yeah.
We don't often see with Zach Bailey.
We saw the best and worst of Zach Bailey, of course. Like the easy misses and the rundown tackle, which, I mean, you could hear every Lions supporter when that happens, when Tom Stewart pins him when he's running into 50, and you can hear it all around the country what people are saying.
All I can say is, in that moment, and think back to the other times where that's happened it's happened 3 times in big moments this game, against Melbourne, Collingwood, and this. He's got quite a resume of people who have tackled him. You've got Viney, Tom Stewart, and I think it was Hoskin Elliott, the other one. I
think so, yeah.
Yeah, Hoskin Elliott can fuck off, but the other 2 are like pretty high-profile tackling. So if you're going to be like, good job, Jack Payne at the end for tackling Mitch Duncan. Tom Stewart, he left his man. He went. It's good defending. More so, it just happened to be the guy that it happens to occasionally. So, if it had been anyone else, if it had been like Fletcher or Ashcroft or something, and it had happened, no one would really bat an eyelid, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's a great tackle." But, I think you're right. Best and worst, but also more of the best, I would say.
And it's the same for Cam Rayner as well. Like, obviously, his first half and his second half, night and day, like Zorko's last week. He was huge in the second half, obviously kicked the sealer. His pressure around the ball, his tackling, all that sort of stuff. And he said he's been doing a lot of work with Trent Cotchin on that side of things, which has obviously been really good for him. It was just a game where everyone had moments. Like, everyone stepped up, had moments. Like, Darcy Wilmot had another great game after a fairly poor showing. He took a huge hanger. 3
games where we have 3, like, not mark of the year, but mark of the round contenders.
Yeah.
Like, in another... Like, Loman's was huge. Wilmot's was bullshit. And then Cam Rayner's contested one at the end was fantastic.
That was clutch, that one.
Yeah. Have you seen the photo of Wilmot's one that's been floating around?
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Um,
So good.
and the thing that made Kai Lohmann's even better is like just less than a minute before Stengel went the hang and he left an hour too early and misjudged the flight completely. We got the free kick out of it, and then Kai Lohmann's like, all right, let me show you how it's actually done, mate.
He was having no fear from last year's debacle in the qualifying final in the VFL. But, there's... I mean, even guys that it probably... And it's hard to mention all of them, but, like, I thought, again, Fletcher was really good.
Yeah.
You know, and... Ollie Dempsey's a really good player, but he was basically nowhere the vast majority of the game except for the one goal he kicked. And I don't know if Fletcher was specifically going to him or how they were kind of wrangling that, but, you know, Fletcher just keeps chipping away and he keeps standing up and he's not afraid. I think his first action in an AFL game, and I remember it, was he got the ball under duress. I think it was against Melbourne at the MCG. Got the game under duress and had to take a heated tackle from a big experienced guy. And when he did that, you're sort of sitting there going, okay, he's good. He knows what is required for the team.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would, you know, drop the head. What did Luke Parker do to Dylan Shield back in the day or whoever it was? So he's fantastic. I'm so glad he's on the team. And everyone had their moments. Hipwood kicked a goal in the first quarter, even. Jesus.
It was. It really was a game full of moments for a lot of people, and like Oscar going down, Joe Danaher has to sacrifice his game and just battle it out in the ruck solo. Which, I mean, he's in one of my players to get votes just simply for that act, as is Oscar for that as well, and just, you know, Ashcroft not as obviously influential as last week, but, you know, his moment at the very end that led to the Cam Rayner goal as well. I thought Max Holmes was probably best on, if not one of best on in the first half, and it probably came as no surprise that when he went down for that 15-minute rub down of that hamstring, that's when we took control of the game. And when
How funny that both him and O did their O popped his shoulder out at the same time that Max Holmes did his hamstring. And the same footage.
And when we played Geelong earlier this year, Oscar went down fairly early on with a concussion. We didn't have him for the rest of the game as well. And, you know, obviously back in 22 when Max Holmes did the hamstring, missed out on the grand final. I did feel bad for him in that moment. If Geelong were going to make it through, I was going to be like, oh, poor Max Holmes doesn't deserve this again. But thankfully it's not something we really have to worry about. I mean, not have to worry about it anyway, but I did feel bad for him in that moment if that was going to be the case. But
it's gone to the Dangerfield School of Running, I guess.
Yeah, and now we have to face Brodie Grundy without our number one ruckman, and Darcy.
In all
Ford's
fairness, Brodie Grundy he was probably the only player that didn't really perform for Sydney against Port Adelaide against Jordan Sweet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that's probably giving a bit of liberties, but just back. So before Owie popped his shoulder out the second time, we were kind of... So that was sort of before our run really started. Or it might have... I don't know. It felt a bit like maybe we should pull the trigger on getting O off before his shoulder came out the second time, and just... He was labouring. And yeah, then it came out again and it looked awful. Yeah. Why don't they stop the game?
I don't know that you can.
Yeah.
I'm glad he came back out and battled on. I think, like, just to be a big body and a big presence in the marking contest, in the ruck contest, was more than enough that he could do just to try and help us as much as possible and keep our structure somewhat during that time. Obviously, by the time
I think it allowed Joe to not have to ruck for 3 whole quarters, which I think probably was the motivation behind it. But yeah, it's just hard to watch. It feels he's just so nice and so, I don't know. Wanted to give him a giant hug. Yeah. Not on his arm though. So, and then seeing him get wheeled off on the bloody extra large gurney. We needed a mountain to get rid of this guy. But Yeah, the third quarter really turned it around. Somehow we led at 3/4 time.
Crazy. And then I think, the last quarter was just gripping, absolutely gripping. And, the outside perspective of neutral fans of it being the game of the year and one of the best finals and all that sort of stuff, obviously rings true because it was a cracking contest, and thankfully we're on the right side of it this time. And that last 2 to 5 minutes was just full of moments, from us being up by 2 and a bit goals to them leading by a point, and then the clutch Cal Archie goal followed by the absolute dart from Cam Rayner's left boot from outside 50, followed by not followed by, but the screamer in the middle that we really needed in that moment as well. Just amazing. And then Reece Stanley butchering a shot with 30 seconds to go. I don't think it would have been very hard for them to, if he had kicked it, we still would have had a 5-point lead. It would have been very hard for them to get a goal in that time, but not impossible. So the second he missed that, you knew it was over. And then I was in a mad scramble trying to book flights via Webjet, and long story, but that didn't pan out. And I've had to book 2 sets of flights because it got absolutely cocked up.
How good.
Yep.
Love that. You'd think that they'd probably be a bit more aware of the situation, but apparently not. That's why you get what you got. So, one of the great preliminary finals, and I think it's, if you haven't watched it again, watch it again.
Yeah, that'll be my plan at some point today.
I watched it at the time. I was using SEN Sync, which was fantastic. Amazing to hear. So, because Jared Waitley's a Geelong fan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. A funny aside. So Dermot Brereton, I love Dermy. So Ashcroft got a couple of free kicks for sort of putting his head in places it shouldn't go, but not in a drawing a free kick kind of a way. And Dermot Brereton had the gall to say, "Oh, for a bloke with hair like that, he's actually pretty tough." And you're sitting there going, "Are you out of your mind, you pompous, perm, blonde, mulleted twit? It's the same hair."
Yeah.
So funny. I don't know whether it was tongue in cheek, but it's funny.
The other funny moment was when the umpire called Will Marcus.
Yeah, I did hear that. At least he didn't call Fletcher's dad Marcus like I did last week, so everyone loves Mark. You got to wonder how that happened as well, because it's not as if the other guy would have been umpiring any time.
Maybe
when Marcus Ashcroft was there. Who knows?
Maybe.
Steve McBurney, back from the dead. Was it Steve McBurney?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But what a fantastic game. The team have sung the song correctly twice in the last 2 weeks. It's been great.
Yep.
And just, I loved the moment that Fagan took just on the sideline, just a few deep breaths as the siren went. It wasn't crazy Fagan that we saw last week, or, in a lot of the other ones, he just sort of was like, "Oh, shit, how did we get here?"
Yeah.
So, but a bit of a masterclass from him in the box, so well done for them. I was having some thoughts throughout the year that potentially, because, we've seen Big O on the bench of the AFLW, and obviously we talked at length about JL, and I did watch the retirement video of JL, and having guys like Link McCarthy and Darcy Gardner and stuff. Could there be a little bit more input from those senior players at a coaching perspective this year, potentially?
Yeah.
And even in mentorship, and not having to focus on their own game, and rather than it being a do as I say, not as I do, it's just do as I say, because I'm not doing anything with a cropped leg.
Yep.
So could be a bit of that, but yeah, that's one for inside the 4 walls. And until we get there, which we won't, we can only speculate.
All right, well, it's time to try and piece together some sort of votes, thanks to Hop On Brewery Tours, hoponbrewerytours.com.au. Book yourself a half or a full day tour. Now that a lot of people have some free time after next week, plenty of time to book yourself for a brewery tour across Brisbane or the Gold Coast. I do not know how I'm going to vote.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Because I'll just say some words, and then that way you can be like, he didn't vote for this guy. So I'll sort of like what I do, which is like kind of equalising the... I'm going 1 vote Kalachi.
Sure.
2 votes Starcevic. 3 votes Frog.
Okay. All right, well, all 3 of those were in amongst names I wanted to vote for as well. So I think Frog is a good choice for the 3. Absolutely. I think they're all obviously all deserving of votes. You could have given...
Paddy is going to be an absolute car crash this year.
Yeah. So the other names I had potentially for votes were, and Rayner and Lohman just for moments. Lockie Neal obviously back to close to his best. Zorko, fantastic game. And Oscar and Joe for just the services they provided for the team on the weekend as well. So, all right, for me, I'm going to give 1 to Frog as well because he deserves all the votes. Neil the 2 and Zorko the 3.
Very good. I think Zorko's probably a bit of a runaway with the... Although maybe we should just wait and not tell anybody.
Yeah, we'll have it. We've still got some votes to do next week as well, so we'll have a chat about it after next week. But yeah, like it honestly, I could have given 3 votes to so many players this week for different roles and moments that they had across the weekend. It was really, really good. Really nice problem to have for me as just some guy. That I've got 9 players on a list here that I can't separate.
We're kind of looking like brute forcing the Gary Ayres medal at this stage, just from sheer weight of numbers of... It's Gary Ayres medal as the best player of the finals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Through just sheer weight of numbers of games played.
Yeah.
I did read something that the Lions this year will have played the most games, think, ever?
Yeah, it sounds about right. Because yeah.
27 games, I think.
That's crazy.
So, which is a lot of games. A lot of games.
Bloody is. All right, before we get to team changes, and you'd have to think there's only one, I'm going to touch quickly on the women who, in the last week...
They clipped Daisy's Eagles' wings.
Not just that, smashed them.
Yeah.
And
I mean, clipped them, and they're not flying anytime soon.
Thanks, Ken.
Oh, yeah, shit. That was completely unintentional. Do some zoomies while we're at
it. So Wednesday night, they did a number on the Bulldogs, who we all sort of saw coming because the Bulldogs are definitely in rebuilding phase this year, and they're without Ellie Blackburn. Sophie Conway was huge in that game with 2 goals, 22 touches. Taylor Smith is really coming alike. She has improved out of sight this year as a key forward, which is absolutely amazing to see. Ali Anderson, another great game. Belle Dawes was huge. That was against the Dogs at Brighton Homes Arena. Then a quick flight to Perth for a game on Sunday. Backing up the performance again. Taylor Smith with a couple of goals, but Jade Ellinger with one of the all-timers. Got plenty of the ball. 675 metres gained, which is in an AFLW.
That's a lot.
In an AFL, like it's a lot in a men's game. In a women's...
That's the one where, like, if Daniel Rich had that, you'd be like, oh, well, it's fucking Daniel Rich.
Yeah. Amazing, and hit the scoreboard too with 2 goals too. She was absolutely everywhere. So they'll have a nice little break before their next game, thankfully, but they are well and truly back after the round 1 embarrassment against the Kangaroos. They're currently sitting second on the ladder, but they've played an extra game, so that will even out over the next week or so. But the women are well and truly back.
I read some stuff from Craig Starcevic. He's pretty unhappy with the fixturing, particularly leading into this week, because I'm led to believe that they are playing in Brisbane on the Sunday. The women.
Yep.
And he's not happy about that because he's like, dealing with a soft cap, we've got a lot of people that share responsibilities within the club. How are they going to do the grand final on the Saturday in Melbourne and then be back to do this? If you're going to do this insane fixturing, maybe look at the teams that could potentially be in the grand final. And yeah, it's just a lack of coherency between the AFL. They don't do the AFLW a lot of favours, and we saw the North Melbourne coach say things like that as well. Like, North Melbourne are probably the hottest AFLW ticket in Melbourne at the moment, yet they're playing their game at Whitten Oval at 5 p.m. on a Friday. Like, how can anyone get there? And it's no wonder they're getting, if 1,000 people there, and they're like, we would rather play at Arden Street at a better time. But I don't know. I did read some things probably last week, but just a lot of the AFL clubs are not overly happy with Andrew Dillon and Laura Kane in the AFL.
Yeah, I did see something about that. I think it was a Tom Morris report, perhaps.
Him.
Yes, him.
To be honest, I don't blame the AFL clubs. I did see quite a funny comment on that one because someone said, also Laura Kane just like explaining away umpire decisions, and someone with a little Collingwood badge on their name said, look, the season's done now. It was definitely fucking 50.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah.
So it was good. It was a good one.
No
VFL, obviously, although I did watch the VFL grand final yesterday, and Werribee got the win, goal, in an absolutely swinging affair. Southport kind of kicked themselves out of the game in the first half. We've seen that before. It's not great.
Yes.
Their captain and ruckman is hilarious with these giant mutton chops. Crosley. And Werribee kicked 7 goals in the third quarter and really sort of... It got tight again because it got back within a goal, and... pretty good game. Pretty good game. And Sean Manor was there to present the medal for Best on Ground and looked very sad. So that was good. And it'd been 29 years, I think, since Werribee had won a premiership. They've only won one other one. So well done to them.
And obviously
presented.
They fell short last year to the Gold Coast. So they'll be feeling good about that.
How funny is it that in both the VFL and the AFL, we've had both runner-up teams of the 2 previous years play off.
Yeah.
And in the AFL, it's the same thing. Also, another thing to be said about a team from Queensland finishing 5th and coming in. But, hopefully we can right the wrongs of what Southport did. So, it's funny how things can be so similar like that.
And another game I want to quickly touch on as well, and I know Lions fans will have a little bit of an interest in this one, is the Coates Talent League grand final, where Sandringham Dragons have won their 3rd premiership in a row. But Levi Ashcroft, 27 touches, 3 goals, best on field. And Sam Marshall, who's also been linked to the Lions via the academy, another midfielder, had a great game as well. So
he was best on ground with 28 and 2.
Yeah.
So he won best on ground in that game, which I've read a lot of saltiness about. Why are they there?
Yep.
Why would they, and I don't understand the goings on and the ins and outs of it, and how the talent pathways work, but it does seem a little bit strange to be able to be part of a Northern Academy and then be able to play for Sandy. But
yeah, that is strange.
Is it an element? And there's been a lot of other players that have done it too. I'm pretty sure Darcy Jones kind of went in through that way. He was being fostered somewhere, but is it not the element of the seasons are quite a bit shorter in Queensland, so they don't get as much football? And that was one thing that I did notice when I went down to Geelong and watched the under 13s. I think it was the under 13s carnival. It was a schools carnival, and man, like the South Australian and Victorian teams were just so much better than every other team, and it's unsurprising. And the reason for that is because the school system down here and in South Australia, one can assume, is they basically play 25 game seasons. Whereas up in Brisbane, the school system, they're still only playing 8 or 9 games because it's not a school competition.
Yeah.
Like, it's a club competition that isn't affiliated in the school system, which they're trying to model it based on the Victorian system. And when you're sitting there going, okay, well, is it Haileybury?
Haileybury.
What's the name of that? Haileybury. Yep. They've got Matthew Lloyd and Pendlebury coaching them, whereas in fucking Padua or up in Brisbane, you got Bazza, the PE teacher. So it's like there's an inequity there, and that's why I can understand people playing their junior footy with one of the clubs like Morningside and stuff, but they're not affiliated with a school.
Yeah.
So that's where the pathway doesn't work in those carnivals. And the standard is very disproportionate, and that's probably why they come in and, play a season with Sandy in their 17-year-oldness of it all. So there's probably two sides to a story, and it's probably somewhere in the middle that should be cut off. You probably shouldn't be able to play for one of those teams. But for Levi, he's a father-son, not a academy, so it doesn't really matter in that sense. But a lot to like there. That's my 2 cents about that, and it probably is a garbled mess.
That's fine. That's what we're here for. All right. Well, thanks to Crisp Communications, chriscoms.co, giving you free Brisbane Lions Fancast stickers. You can check that out at our website. Let's have a look at this game against Sydney. Let's have a look at the grand final against Sydney, and you'd have to think there's only going to be the one change, and that will be Darcy Fort coming in for Oscar McInerney. I can't see Henry Smith taking that spot. I think that will be Darcy Fort's position.
We saw Darcy Fort do it in the elimination final in 2022. I think
Fullerton
game against Melbourne.
Well, Fullerton came in for that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the two of them. So
because Joe Danaher was the very late withdrawal.
He had a kid.
Yeah.
And he'd been punted in the game before, so we lost that too.
Yeah.
Which there's a tremendous level of irony because I'm still very fond of that particular game.
Oh yeah. No, we all.
And the idea that Fullerton played against them and couldn't get a game for him this year. I know he didn't do a great deal, but still sucked in. So yeah, Fort's got form in terms of doing that, coming in and playing, and he did a really good job on Max Gawn that day.
Yep.
And he hadn't played a lot of footy, so that could be something worth watching. But yeah, Fort will be there.
Yeah, I can't see any other changes unless something happens in a training mishap this week. And
no.
Sydney they've got some decisions to make about Callum Mills and Logan McDonald, just how busted that ankle is. Obviously, they put in an underdone Sam Reid in 2022, and that backfired on them. And you can't see John Longmire making that same mistake again. So
he's not going to make it for a third time.
Yeah, Logan McDonald's a wait and see, as is Callum Mills, because even when he was playing, he wasn't exactly playing the best footy. So it's hard to see who they're going to take out of that team for that one. Robbie Fox is probably the obvious one there. So yeah, they've got their own selection dilemmas. Ours seems pretty straightforward. And then it's just going to be the case of matchups and who is going to get the job on Isaac Heaney, who is playing ridiculous footy. He's sort of like when you get one of those old NBA 2K games and you just max out the stats to 99 because you just want to dominate. He's playing that sort of footy at the moment.
Dear, it's a very odd. This is going to go in an odd direction, but I used to play a game on the Nintendo 64 called International Superstar Soccer.
Sure.
And it was from like 1996 or 1997. It still is a really good game. So it's what ended up being the Pro Evo soccer games, whatever. But when you made a character 99 everything, not quite as good as if you didn't.
Sure.
Speed, stamina, all good. But if you had their like shooting, because you had like accuracy and stuff, it'd be too good and it wouldn't quite work.
Okay.
So you want to take a bit of the accuracy off so you can, So I'm not a fan of the 99 everythings.
Okay. Well, I'm a fan of Isaac Heaney and the footy he's playing.
Yeah. I like a token 85.
Sure.
Yeah, a couple of 85. Good, but, not 99 everything. That only happened once as well because it was completely random in that game. So, anyway, that's a blast into my past. Fantastic game. Look it up, everybody. It's got some banging music, and the players have got gigantic quads.
Lovely.
So it's pretty funny. Isaac Heaney, what do you do with him?
Dunkley, Berry.
I mean, I don't know. It's always a bit, does Berry have the burst to go with someone like that? So, Dunks is probably the thing, but...
Yeah, Berry's probably more suited to a Goulden, perhaps. But then there's Chad Warner as well, so...
It could be the sort of thing where Fletcher goes to Goulden.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that.
I can see that working because he's got a reasonable amount of, a lot of attributes that would go well with that. I just fucking don't want to see people backing off the mark when Goulden's got the ball in the corridor, which is what happened in the game in the Gabba twice. It made me pull my hair out because you're sitting there going, he'll just kick the ball exactly, put someone on the mark.
Yeah.
So put someone on the mark when Goulden takes a mark in the corridor, for goodness sake. I don't think their three key forwards can have a better game than they did last week.
No,
I don't think that they're going to have a game that it's not going to happen.
No, and I was about to launch into that. I think forward and back, I think we match up. Like, on paper, we match up pretty well. Forward and back, it's the midfield, and obviously their system and structure is where they win their games. But I think, generally speaking, McCartan and Melican are no slouches. Like, Melican's probably one of the most improved players this season. I think we can match up on, Starcevic or Noah Answorth will take Papley, and then whoever doesn't get that job will get Haywood. I think they match up fairly well. I think, as you said, there's no way Amadi and McLean are kicking another 3 goals, 2 goals, whatever it was they kicked last week again.
I think between the 3 of them, they kicked 6 goals.
Yeah.
Between McLean, Mac, other, and Amadi. Amadi got 3, one got 2, and one got 1. Who's the other one?
Logan McDonald, who is...
McDonald, right.
With the ankle. But we didn't have Jack Payne last time we played him and played them, and he was all right on the weekend. Obviously much better than the week before. He had his moments.
Jack Payne?
Yeah.
He was fine. I didn't think he was playing on Ollie Henry. Like, people seem to think he was playing on Ollie Henry. Ollie Henry was playing on Harris.
Yeah.
And also, he got his goals through bullshit.
Yeah.
So, Payne did a really good... Shannon Neal was absolutely nowhere.
And obviously...
expression.
Match-saving tackle against Mitch Duncan as well, which is what you want from your key defender. So I think either end of the ground we match up fairly well. Definitely. I don't know. They've got some pretty handy small backs as well that I think will get the job on Rayner. Bailey, Cameron.
Really good again.
Yeah, Cunningham will go straight to Charlie Cameron, you'd have to think. And then...
but that said, do it and then see what happens with Lohman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the luxury we've got now. Or is there going to be a sort of thing where they go, Charlie Cameron's not in that great form, Cuns, go to Lohman? Do they call him Cuns? Just gave him a nickname.
Yeah, I can't imagine they do. They might. I don't know.
Cunners.
Yeah.
Cuns. No. But,
now you're dancing on thin ice.
Could be a John Longmire horse to be like, all right, we're going to send him to Lohman and shut that out because we won't expect... Is there going to be a game of poker?
Yeah.
Who knows?
The one up forward that is Luke Parker, which might be a bit of a tricky matchup for us. I think he might potentially go to Zorko and try and put someone dangerous on Zorko so he's got to be accountable. That might be an option. Last week, when Alir was sort of having a pretty influential first quarter, John Longmire said he moved Parker to Alir to keep him accountable because he's got a bit of forward craft, and that seemed to work pretty well. So if they're going to try and limit Zorko's influence, I think Luke Parker may be the one to do that.
You go to Harris?
Yeah, potentially as well, yeah.
Yeah, how good. Fucking just dudes doing stuff on our dudes.
It's just, and this may work against or for them, and I was touched on it before, just the lead-up Sydney have had to this grand final compared to ours is, they haven't had to leave Sydney. They've had a fairly cruisy game against Port Adelaide leading into this. We've had to slog it out on the road for a couple of weeks. And we looked tired and sore in stages on Saturday. And that's gonna get doubled down come this Saturday as well. But we've had the experience on the grand final.
They haven't left Sydney since the 16th of August.
It's crazy.
Which is round 23. So, yeah. I guess, so you obviously heard Fagan's press conference where he talked about Geelong's kind of slightly flaccid games leading into where we were. I don't think Sydney have had quite as softer games as Geelong. They've had one.
Yeah.
Last week was pretty soft, but the game against GWS is probably pretty hard. But that's the only one I didn't get to see actually. So defer to you. But was that kind of because you look at the GWS game last week and go, it wasn't super the prelim was much tougher throughout the whole game, whereas the GWS game we sort of didn't play and then we played.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but we've also, you know, with the way the fixturing happened with us, we were able to get back to Brisbane more quickly. They're coming down on the Wednesday, so they're trying to sort of acclimatise. Won't be as hot
Yep.
as last year, so it's looking at being I think a top of 22 or top of 23. So it could just be generally a bit nicer.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess not coming up against an MCG tenant is obviously pretty helpful as well. We've had very recent experience there. Sydney play pretty well in the MCG though. Like they're pretty good there. So that's going to make things tough. I think it's going to be another great grand final. I hope it's not a blowout. I think it's going to be another close one.
What do we wear are we wearing our maroon?
I think it'd have to be.
I've been looking back at the SCG games and trying to find out because we haven't had one for a few years.
I think it'll be home kit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it might be dual home kits, which is cool.
Yeah. I can't see why they wouldn't. Like we got to wear the home kit last year with the white shorts, and that may be the case again. But home kits for both.
So when we've played at the SCG, it was a couple of years ago. We wore full home kit, and they wore full home kit.
Yeah.
Because there's no way we could wear the red.
No.
It just wouldn't work because that would be even more of a clash.
Yeah.
Bears yellow. That'd be insane.
I would be
I kind of
so upset if we won a grand final wearing that yellow strip.
not a fan.
At the end of the day, I guess if you told me that was the payoff, you get to win a grand final, you have to wear the yellow kit, I'll take that every day of the week. But when you could clearly wear the home kit without a clash, you have to. You have to.
No yellow kit. Just I'll have my reversible one and just like whip it to the yellow.
Yeah. Like it's fine. It's certainly not my favorite clash jumper we've had. It's fine. But can you imagine looking back on the photos in 20 years time and we're wearing that yellow?
You're like, what happened there? It's like, the kit man, he screwed up. You've got to bring the kits.
It's like when you look back at like wedding photos from the 70s and they're wearing like brown or blue suits. Velvet suits, and you're like, what were you thinking? And they're like, well, it was the style at the time. Like, yeah, well, great. Well, now look.
I don't know. I quite like that, to be perfectly honest. I'm pretty sure my dad wore a brown suit to his wedding.
Yeah, and I get it. They all did. They all did. I just don't want to see that. If we can avoid it,
I'll make sure that I'll bring my parents' wedding photos for you to have a look through if you don't want to see it, just to make you look at it. Your brown suit.
You can wear a brown suit with the yellow kit underneath if you like. That can be your garb for the day.
Actually, that said, I do have a maroon jacket that I think I'm going to wear.
Ooh, Joffa style.
It's.
I just wanted to see your face.
Didn't disappoint. Yeah, I just randomly got it.
Yeah, nice.
Got it. Like someone's like, "Do you want this?" I'm like, "No," but I took it because I'm polite. And I think I even said, I want to say 3 months ago, I was like, "Oh, I can wear this to the grand final."
Sure.
And I just remembered now, and I'm gonna wear that to the grand final.
Nice.
It's like a blazer.
Sure.
But it's sweet, sorted. So I've got my outfit sorted. Up to you, team. Sucked in.
Other than other matchups, I'm very nervous for this game. Obviously, we got the win a couple of weeks ago in a cracking game. Papley went down injured in that game, so did Rampy, and Hayward was on one leg. But it was still a great game nonetheless. Obviously, the infamous Kalarchi goal on the left boot. Can he do it again? He's had a pretty good final series.
Yeah, that was a tough game, and a lot of people that called the grand final preview there nailed it.
Yeah. I wonder how our mate is going, how many beers he's going to have.
Oh, right. Yeah, gutter. That's where. In the gutter completely. But yeah, do get onto us then. We'll probably have to I don't know. I mean, obviously we'll do a review.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll draw the short straw either way. So let's not think about that for now. But yeah, I think we probably, because we didn't really last year. Probably just in case, should maybe talk a bit about the Brownlow.
That's right. Yeah, that's on tonight.
Because we kind of were like, I think I quote said, well, none of our fucking dudes are winning, so who cares? And then Lachie Neale won the Brownlow. So go figure. So my thoughts still go the same way, in that Lachie Neale is like, he's like the perfect vote getter.
He is.
Because no one else is stealing votes off him. It just doesn't really happen. Ashcroft's been out for most of the season, so he's not pinching votes.
Zorko will take them early.
Maybe, but also not guaranteed. You never know. Like, umpires fucking hate Zorko.
True, but especially early on, he will take some 3s and 2s. The thing with Lachie is he just pulls in 3s, and when he has a standout game, it is standout, and we'll get the 3. And has he been best on and had those sort of games in sort of 8 to 10 games? Probably.
So you never know. He could win. If he wins, I mean, cool. If he doesn't really matter. Like, it'll probably be imagine if it's a Cripps Dacos shootout. Like,
I think it will be.
That's kind of cool. But if they tie, that'd just be like Vic bias at its worst.
Yeah,
it's like got to give them something. Carlton, Collingwood. So I don't know. Smokies, Caleb Sarong, but Fremantle probably didn't win enough games. Zach Merritt needs to like be a better leader off field. I'm with whoever said that.
Lloydie.
By the way,
Lloydie.
Because he's obviously a fantastic on-field leader, but he just strikes me as being a bit of a grubby moron off the field. Like, just, yeah, what about this? And he's just like, just shut up and be like, have a bit of like level-headedness to you. Did notice Cam Rayner's weird brother in the room after the game on Saturday, so I'm sure in the AFL will be giving us a what for about affiliates in the room. That's me. That's completely baseless. Cam Rayner's brother, if you're listening. I don't know. I know that you liked like sinking tinnies, and that's why your football career never really got off the ground. So I remember that from about 2018. Yeah. Other Brownlow people.
I mean, Bontel Pole, I think he'll be top 5, but I think he'll...
Bontempelli.
Yeah. I don't know that he'll... Like, his last sort of 5 to 10 games, he had some good ones, he had some not so good ones, so I think it'll be Cripps Dacos will be the runaways, and Neale, Bonton, Sarong, Heaney will obviously poll. He'll poll early, and then...
Bontempelli just doesn't want a Brownlow because Western Bulldogs are disappointing. They don't win enough games. Yeah. That's the reason. It's going to be funny when Dacos gets 3 votes for playing 1 quarter against the Lions.
Yep.
That's the thing that I'm keeping my eye on, because it's like, you were fucking useless for the rest of the game. But I guess, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. And Isaac Heaney robbed of Mark of the Year.
I think it'll be an enthralling count tonight. I think it'll be fairly close, or Cripps will end up winning by like sort of 5 or 6 votes.
Yeah, I must admit, you said a few weeks ago Cripps ended the season with a wet sail, and I'm kind of like, isn't a wet sail bad for nautical reasons? Like, wouldn't that make the...
I would have thought so, but they just that's the saying, coming home with a wet sail. I don't know what it means.
Does it mean you've been out on the water for a long time?
Maybe.
Your sail's wet from the salt spray?
You can look into the history of that, and we'll readdress it next week.
Well, apparently, when I do look into the history of these things, I get it right, and people still think I've got it wrong. So, sooner or later, to write my list of idiotic idiosyms, and have them pasted on my forehead so that people aren't like, that's not what that one is. It's like, it is. There's only one bowstring on every bow.
All right, well...
And the other one about cooking or whatever, the pudding.
That'll do, I reckon, seeing as we've found ourselves here.
All I'll say is the proof of the Brownlow will be in the votes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
On
If you are going to come to the grand final, we're gate 4, section M4 behind the goals. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up.
Apparently we'll be wearing a maroon blazer.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up with some listeners across the day. So get in touch. Love to meet you all and share a beer and hopefully get to celebrate after the fact as well, which would be a nice little ending to the year, and what a year it's been. So one game to go.
I do realise I've doxed myself and I'm probably going to get punched in the back of the head about 4 times, aren't I?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Is that Can someone else wear a blazer in that section just to throw people off the scent?
I'm seeing double 4 crusties. All right.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
I'll see you on Saturday.
Let's go dance on some thin ice.